Welcome to the podcast. I am Jen Wilson, the Healing Rebel, and if you are new here, welcome. If you have come back, thank you. If you like anything that you hear today, please do make sure that you do the likes, do the subscribes, do the shares, whatever you do on whichever platform that you are on. And I am delighted to have Ashley Scotland with me today. This is not the first time we've met.
It is not. No, delighted to be here.
And I am very happy that Heather said, "Get Ashley on the podcast. Ashley's got great things to chat about."
Yeah.
And Ashley does have great things to chat about.
Sometimes.
So welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
What does it mean to be a thriving survivor?
Oh, now there's a question. I think for me it's about growth.
Mm-hmm.
So I think for a long time I have tried to find the right identity for me. We hear labels so often: victim, survivor. A thriving survivor for me is somebody that has embodied a process of post-traumatic growth, and the trauma's not been worth it. I don't mean it like that, but the trauma has allowed you to grow in a way that you would never have done before, and it's what's born out of that. So I think for me, being a thriving survivor is about growth, and I would say I've probably even went beyond that still, and probably stepped out of that label altogether, even the thriving survivor label. I think I've grew beyond that, and that at the core of that is post-traumatic growth.
Yeah, and I really like that term, post-traumatic growth, because you hear so much about PTSD.
Yes.
That's stress disorder. So therefore, you are a victim rather than shit's happened. How do we help you move through this and come out the other side stronger,
resilient? It's like resilience is a process of bouncing backwards, like bouncing back when you come.
It's all right.
For me, the resilience is when you bounce back from something.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, post-traumatic growth is about bouncing forward. It's about what moves you to the next bit.
The next level.
So it's been absolutely key to getting me to where I am now. But I see it in this office every single day. I see people embody post-traumatic growth where they've found meaning in their experience, and that's just incredibly powerful.
Yeah, and there are people in different circles. So you've got all the trauma therapists telling everybody that they've got trauma and you've got to do this and you've got to work through it. And then you'll have people in another field saying, oh, like the neurodivergent field, oh, everybody's got some form of neurodivergence. So there's a lot of people out there putting themselves into positions of, you need me to get you to the next level. I'm seeing your face and you're like, oh, yes.
Yeah, I think the only person that can get you to that place is you. Yeah. So we don't move people from one bit to the next. They do that themselves. We put the structures, the foundations in, and we teach them what they need to know. But then the actual embodiment of that needs to come from the person themselves. And I think when you start to see people become totally empowered to take back power, to take back choice, but I think above everything, it's about control and being able to be back in control of different aspects of their life. And you're right, trauma is often seen as such a negative thing, but there is a light at the end of the tunnel for people, and it is a positive space to be. I see the world differently, and I know I see it differently, and that comes through the experiences that I've had, and I see it every single day in this office.
Yeah, because if you'd not gone through what you had gone through, you wouldn't be able to be the leader that you are, the person that you are, the mum that you are, the energy that you are.
Yeah, well, I think all those, and how often do we try and separate all those different parts of self, when actually it's about embodying the whole self, the good, the bad, the ugly, the messy, all of that all contributes to who we are and how we function. But my experiences have shaped me, but they don't define me. And that's the bit. I don't let my trauma define me. I define what that looks like and how that shapes me.
How you then get to show up in the world.
And how I get to show up in the world, how I lead teams of people with lived experience as well. And I think that's how do you manage your own lived experience while managing teams of people that have also got their own lived experience. And it's complex and it's challenging, but it's also incredibly rewarding. We are all incredibly different. But the one thing that bonds us is the trauma and the experiences that have sort of been born from that. And we've built a community of people that are thriving and people that are growing beyond the labels and limitations of trauma and what that looks like.
Yeah, I see that a lot in the health spectrum as well, because I have labels that have been given to me of health conditions, and people go, "Oh, that's terrible. Oh, that's..." And see, when I'm sick, it is terrible, but it has been able to get me to this point. I have completely transformed my life, which I wouldn't have changed had I never become unwell. And it's similar but different. It's and everybody's thing is their thing. There's no, like Gabor Mate talks about, there's no hierarchy of trauma. Like,
it does not discriminate.
Somebody might have gone through what somebody else considers the most horrific thing, but then when that person's looking at somebody else's journey, they'll go, "Oh, but your thing was much worse," or "Your thing was much worse." And there isn't, because your nervous system is experiencing it.
That is right. And it could be somebody that's had a bike stolen. That could be in and of itself a traumatic event. We sort of work to the more complex side of the scale. But certainly when people go through experiences, how they respond to that, how their brain responds to that, is out with their control in that instance. It's how they then manage and adapt to that as you go forward. Like you say, with your health conditions, it's like you've got to almost mind over matter. Like, we've got this label, okay, what are we going to do with this label? And I tend to push against labels. I don't like them very much.
I'm not a fan of it either. And that's something, like, on my business journey that I've been exploring, is how much do I want to lean into those labels, to use that as an identity for people to come to me. But I don't want to, because I don't want to give that energy. I want the fact that I'm living as well as I can be. And I want people to be inspired by that, regardless of what
what the background or circumstance.
Because if somebody's got IBS and food is triggering for them, that can be really challenging for them, because I can't eat this, can't eat that. And somebody's got inflammatory bowel disease, which is what I've got, they could die.
If they eat the wrong food.
But the journey to health and healing is very similar for both of them. Are you listening to your body? Are you listening to how your body responds to the stresses that you're around, to the food that you eat, to the people that you're around, to the exercise you're doing? Are you listening and responding to that in a positive way?
And I think that the same could be said for any type of trauma as well, as your body tells you. Like, so, and you need to, when you tune into that, because the body holds so much, doesn't it? And that I see it, people with their shoulders up here
or down here,
and then by the time they get to the end of a process and they've worked through things, that release, that physical release of tension. So the body's a powerful tool that often tells you long before anything else does, that something isn't quite right.
Yeah, and I think a big challenge for us as we become adults is, from a very young age, we've been conditioned to not listen to our bodies. You go into school, you're told to sit down, you go to the toilet when you're told, you eat when you're told, you nap when you're told, whatever. And that's been conditioned from before you know any better.
Right.
And then by the time you become an adult and you're experiencing stuff, you're like, but I've got to sit in this chair all day to do my job, or I've got to go to the gym even though I don't want to, or whatever it is that you're doing. It's just, you're always overriding the wisdom and the knowledge. And then as you were talking about there, about how people hold themselves, there's so much coming out, and now when people are exploring fascia and how fascia holds your body, and how we hold our posture can be either from an emotional response, so you've closed yourself in to protect yourself from the world, or you're sitting at a desk, hunched over, you've got that same physiology, and then those pathways are blocking signals to and from your brain from other parts of your body saying there's a problem here, but it doesn't necessarily know what that problem is. And being able to open back up can be so liberating and enlightening for people, because it can also be both of those things. You're hiding away, so you hide behind
your screen,
a screen, or your job, whatever that job might be. So for me, it was hiding on my spin bike, teaching a class. You don't think, being the teacher of a class of people, how is that hiding? But I was putting a mask on. I am a persona. I am presenting myself as this really bubbly, fit, happy person, even though my life was falling apart in the background. Nobody knew that. And then that closed that all off and trapped it in. Yeah, masking.
We've become masters at it. When do you take that mask away and just be your authentic self? And I think that's the process that is liberating. Is when you say, right, okay, this is my health. So I live with fibromyalgia, and the diagnosis was devastating, and I thought, my life's over. How am I going to bounce back for this? How am I going to actually manage to live my life? And for me, it was a process, mind over matter. Do you take the drugs? Do the medicines that often the side effects make you worse? So it's how do you then challenge that? Because I think that becomes a challenge of the mind at that point, and that's never an easy place to be. But with the work and the effort, I think you can shift that mindset. I think can be shifted.
And women are notoriously excellent maskers.
Yes.
Where do we think that comes from?
Oh, do you not think that's built into us? Whether you're west of Scotland, like, we don't speak about our feelings. We don't, like, is that ingrained in how we were raised and how we grew up? As I remember, like, my granny, and she was like stoic. Like, there was just nothing that rattled this woman. She just kept going and going, and I don't think you see that anymore. I think they're a generation where they got up and they kept going, and I don't know if it was a mask over the years, but to me, she was stoic, but actually, was she masking? And is that where we learn that? Because we don't fit the cultural norms, for example, so we therefore show up with a certain persona so as that we can fit in. I think a mask is something that we learn to build and to use over time. But again, I think it's liberating when you're in a place where you can take that mask away and you can be who you are. And with the pain or the suffering, and actually just owning that and stepping into that. And I think that's a vulnerability thing. So I think your vulnerability and your mask sort of sit hand in hand. And culturally, we don't talk about this stuff. We put a face on, especially in leadership, I think. Like, when I think about my leadership journey, there is times where I need to come in and put a face on it and put a mask on and say everything's fine, and when actually the whole lot's crumbling behind you. Why do I do that? And that's to protect everybody else for the worry, for the stress. And so I think we often as women tend to try and hold too much as well, and the mask allows us to try and manage the multiple things that come our direction.
Yes, when you're saying that, I'm thinking about, like, our grandparents would have lived through the war. Like, I remember, I only learned that Glasgow had bomb drops on it, like, because I didn't do history at school. And at the Palace Museum, and I was sitting in this wee bomb shelter thing with my pal going, was there bombs dropped in Glasgow? And I went home and I told, like, my gran was there for dinner that night, and I was just like, I can't believe that happened. And she went, oh yes, we were sitting in the bomb shelter and a bomb was dropped in our neighbour's garden. And I was like, what? This was the first I'd heard about it, and it was just, that was just what happened. And I think when you've been through that level of uncertainty, for want of a better word, you do have to put that brave face on, and then you're not teaching the next generation how to show emotion. So then they are mirroring the adult, and then the next generation, because if I think about our generation, how many of us have got chronic illness, and how much of that has come through epigenetics of this is how we show up, but that's not how the body works, because the body's an emotional body. You come into the world as an emotional body and then learn behaviour.
That's right.
And it's like, I wonder how, because like my parents are both pictured health and most of their friends are as well. So they've lived differently, where they've watched and learned this, but then it's been more ingrained in our generation. So we're coming out a wee bit more fragile. And then that's presenting as health. And I'm just unraveling this in my brain as we're having this conversation.
I'm with you.
Make this make sense. Make this make sense. And I'm like, right, so that war didn't just impact them, it's followed down the genetic chain. And we are now here going, how do we fix this? So that the next generations are not suffering the way that we suffered.
The way that we did. Do you not think the next generation are figuring that for themselves?
I feel like they're doing it much faster.
Like I can see, I don't know if it's social media or the world that we live in, but I look at my kids, and when you think of I'm going to use an example. We were walking to the school, and a wee boy happened to mention that there was this big gas, like petrol guzzling car, like 5-litre engine. And he said, that's killing our environment. And it's like these young people, the next generation that are coming and following behind us, so switched on. And it is almost looking and going, right, that doesn't work. We need a better solution for that. And I think that goes to the emotional selves as well. And wholeheartedly, I've got 3 kids, and I wholeheartedly encourage all of them to embrace the emotion and to feel it, because how often did we suppress emotions and feelings because that's just how it is. Whereas our kids and our young people these days are so much more expressive with how they feel, good and bad, I suppose. It's a double-edged sword, that one. But I think our young people are figuring it out way quicker than we ever did.
But then do you think that's because we're now learning it, and because they are seeing it at a younger age? So we're working it out in our late 20s, 30s, 40s, nearly 50s.
But they're seeing that evolution happen.
They are seeing that happen at a younger age, whereas we were watching our parents just go on with things. Like, don't have time to deal with this. Let's just.
Children should be seen and not heard.
We just don't.
We just don't live in that. We just don't live in that world. And I think that makes a huge difference. People speak about woke, and I think it's such a horrible phrase, because actually what that is encouraging people to be human, and to actually embrace who they are, and that, like, the good, the bad, and the messy. That's my ethos in life, is like, you need to embrace every bit of yourself, regardless of what that looks like.
Because
why does it look like that? Because we are what's the word I'm looking for? We're raised like that. I can't even find the word that I'm looking for. But you're right, it's ingrained in us for such a young age. So the best we can hope for is that our younger generation see that, challenge that, and I think that's happening, which is a good thing.
Yeah, because we need the rebels in life.
We do. We all need a good rebel.
So I saw you speak at the Scottish Growth Summit.
A lifetime ago.
It does feel like a lifetime ago. Oh, it was about a year ago.
It must be about a year.
Yeah, I think it was March last year. And I was really inspired by your ethos when you were talking, because the way you were talking and the way you were presenting, being a leader, was quite different from some of the other people that were presenting there. And I was like, I really love Ashley's way. It feels like a new way. The other ways felt like the old way of being the man in the boardroom. Like, that doesn't work.
Does not work.
And it's how do we break that down and still be in the boardroom but lead from a better heart-led honest, human way.
So I talk about this, about leading from the whole self, the good, the bad, and the messy. For me, when I speak with raw honesty. So I don't dress things up. I say it how it is, and I speak how I would talk. So when I stand up in front of all those people and share some of the deepest things, that's me embracing my vulnerability, and it really is. So I'm offering a book at the moment called The Kaleidoscope Effect, and that is its whole focus is about challenging the traditional leadership norms that are there. There wasn't a leadership course that was built for me. When I stepped into this, I stepped into it with my lived experience and not much else. Every bit of this business I have learned on the job. I've learned through mistakes and through challenges, and most through my relationships with other people within the team. And I think the biggest thing for me, the big turning point for me, was when we did our disc styles. And what that showed us is I was different to everybody else in the office. I work at a fast pace, I'm driven, I'm ambitious, I'm all these things. But it also showed me how other people could see me, and that could come across as being brash and quite harsh in my tone, and actually that's just how I show up at work. And everybody else being able to see that as well really transformed what we looked like as a team. So people know when they're coming to me, I like things fact driven. I like it short and concise and clear and to the point. And everybody's found their way of working. But that was a real moment for me. It wasn't about what needed to change within the team. That was about what needed to change within me to be a better leader for the team. And I think I embrace that every single day. I am who I am. And that's, I'm not going to shelter that or hide that or contain that. I spent too long masking and hiding in the past. I am who I am, and I've wholeheartedly stepped into that. My way of leadership is just about the people, really, that we support, because without them, business would not work. So recognising in people when they're having a bad day or they're struggling, and it's not something to punish, it's something to nurture and to understand. So I think for me, you're right, I've got a very different approach to my leadership style. And I'm only just starting to really realise that myself. The book that's been written is totally different to any other type of leadership book. It's trauma-informed leadership from the whole self. So whilst the book is about helping to understand different types of experience and all that sort of stuff, actually for this book's for any leader to pick up and to be able to look at how do they manage their teams of people, but more importantly, how do they look inwards at themselves to then be able to do that vulnerability so that everybody else feels they can do the same. So I've been trying to pin all that down for the last couple of years, I think. But it works. And if I could bottle it and sell it, I would probably be very rich.
Right, there's a couple that you said there that I want to circle back on. So you mentioned trauma-informed. Now that feels like a huge buzzword on social media. Everybody's talking about, oh, I'm trauma-informed, oh, I'm trauma-informed. What does that mean to you?
Me being trauma-informed means that everybody that I come into contact with could have experienced trauma in some shape or form. So that means watching my language and how I phrase things, thinking about the space that I bring people into and the space that I create between me and whoever that is. But for me, being trauma-informed is about meeting people where they're at and having an understanding of all the things that are going on with them at that moment in time, and recognising that behaviours and emotions show up in different ways, and often a lot of what we see can be trauma responses. So I treat everybody like they've got trauma, because then that way I know I'm not causing further harm. People say things, and linguistic safety is probably the most important part of trauma-informed practice for me, because the words that you say have real impact, and they can either build somebody up or they can destroy them in a heartbeat. So for me, that linguistic safety is the most important aspect of being trauma-informed. You need to know who's in front of you. And if you just look at everybody, show me somebody that hasn't experienced grief or loss. So when we talk about trauma-informed practice, we also need to talk about what trauma is and what that looks like. Because that, like we said earlier, can look totally different to different people. So the person who had their bike stolen, well, actually, that bike could have been purchased by somebody or belonged to somebody that holds much more meaning than any of us could ever possibly understand.
You could have saved up for years to be able to afford
could
that.
have been an heirloom, who knows? Who knows? And that's the key bit. Is we don't actually know what lies underneath somebody's experiences. So for me, you're right, trauma-informed is a buzzword, and it's used far too often when there is no real foundation of trauma-informed practice. So it's about creating safety and collaboration and like being able to empower people to take that back in themselves.
Because even when I'm working with clients, like when I'm doing massage with them, I always like have to take a moment when I'm explaining what I'm seeing in somebody's body, because they'll be like, "Oh, this is all," and they'll use like a really disparaging term for themselves, and like as though something's broken or something's not right. And I'm like, "No, that's not what it is. Your body's your body," and there might be a bit more puffiness held on one side, and that could be for a million different reasons. It could be how you hold your posture. It could be that there's a blockage somewhere in that part, and when we work through it, it can start to release it. And it was when I was doing my yoga teacher training, we were doing like postural assessments on each other, and I said, I can't remember what it was I had said to one of the guys on the course, and it was my yoga teacher he went, or it could be, and then put it in a more positive way of saying it. I was like, oh yeah, I never thought of that. And it was fine because we were in a learning environment, but it was like, oh, I need to be careful with everything that I'm saying to people, because I can sometimes be a bit just like blunt and say things as I see them, instead of just taking a wee moment to think, how could this be?
How will my words land?
How is this person going to take these words? And I'll still have made mistakes. And I'm sure, and there's a particular client who I said something to. Again, I can't remember exactly what it was, but from her response and how she was when she left, I was like, I've done something here, and it might have been the way that I said this one thing, and I don't know how to fix it. And I had messaged her after to check in with her, and she never responded. And I was like, oh, I have done something, and it's still. This was about 2 years ago, and it's still there going. Must be very careful with my words.
And I think, see if you can hold that. It's like if we just think about how the words land. Like there's so many different examples I could use, but to take back even just to massage. So when we're working with trauma, actually, how many people like their body to be touched? So I tend not to go for massage because I like to know what's happening next, and it must be quite hard for somebody who's carrying out that work be in that situation and they understand the nuances of it. When we look at health inequalities for people that have experienced trauma as well, there's so many things like attending a dentist. Very few people will understand what that means for somebody, but actually they need to go to a dentist and they avoid it at all costs. And actually that's rooted in their trauma and their experience. Same with women going for cervical smears as well. How many people avoid it? And when we talk about language and safety, that's core principles to trauma-informed practice, is creating a safe space. I remember going to get an operation done years and years ago, and it was a male doctor, and I had a total meltdown. I'm going back good 10, 15 years. And I could not have let that man, many women, to carry out that procedure. The hospital changed the the surgeon to conduct the procedure. And that's what true trauma-informed practice looks like. It's about listening to what the person's saying and then being able to respond to that in a way that meets their needs. And we don't see enough of that, especially in your line of work as well. Like the things that we say, the things that we do can have such an impact on people. But I'm always very careful with my words and how I use them, and the tone that I use them in as well. I think it's key.
Yeah, and just mentioning that, like even when I go to massage somebody, especially when it's their very first treatment, I always say to them, I'm going to go really gently and I'm going to meet your body where it's at. So when I'm placing hands on, I'm watching for other responses, other twitches.
Jumps. And
I also say to them on their first treatment, I was like, you can close your eyes and fall asleep, or you can keep your eyes open and chat to me the whole way through. You do what feels comfortable for you, because some people closing their eyes is not relaxing. They're like, I need to see what's happening. I need to know exactly where you are in the room. I need to just have a conversation to take my mind off of what's happening. And I'm like, this is your treatment. I'm just here holding space for you to deliver the best service that I can, but it's a two-way street here. You need to make sure that you're leading it.
It's consent as well, isn't it? Consent's at the core of it. I was at a massage last week and she asked if she could do my stomach. Did I want that done? I was like, yeah, great, that's wonderful. But had she just done it, I don't know that I would have been, I think my reaction would have been quite different. So there is something in consent as well, especially when you're in such an intimate space.
The abdomen's a very intimate space, and I always ask, because the first time I had any work done around my abdomen, I sweated. Like I had sweat pouring out of my midsection, and I was like,
responses.
I was like, in my head, I'm saying it's absolutely fine. This is my friend that's doing the massage, and she's been, your body's not responded that way. It doesn't matter what your head's telling you, your body's responding. So there's something there. And I had to do a wee bit of digging around what that was. And it's like, and a puddle in my belly button.
It's mental how the body responds to some of these things.
And it's like, I don't even know where that stemmed from, but there was a lot of
something.
There's a safety element that I need to bring in to myself. I need to learn what safety feels like for me, so that if somebody else is coming into that space, I can hold that sense of safety. Body is amazing.
It's wonderful. So amazing. It is. Apart from when it hurts, then it's not so wonderful.
Right, there was something else that you had said before, because I asked you about the trauma-informed. On the other part.
So that's what happens when the conversation's just so good.
It's just so good. The conversation is so good. If somebody's listening to this and they are working in a space where they're thinking, I don't know if I'm trauma-informed enough, or I don't really know what that could look like for how I present, where would you guide them to start learning more?
So National Education Scotland website, and doing the trauma-informed training, the Scottish Government have invested like 12 million into this programme. It'll give people the foundations of trauma-informed practice, but I think anybody who leads a team or who works with people should who speaks to people. Like everybody should be trauma-informed, everybody, because like I say, you just don't know who's sitting across from you or what you're holding within that space. So there's some great resources on National Education Scotland. And then there's also just pick up the phone and reach out, because there's so many organisations that work in this sector that are able to provide that sort of support. So learn, pick up a book and read about trauma-informed practice, and just ask somebody as well. But my starting point would be National Education Scotland, and go through that the online training that's there.
I can put a link to that into the show notes so that people can easily find it. Is there anything else particularly you want to talk about today?
I don't think so. I think we've covered a good background.
Do you know roughly when your book might be out?
So I am hopeful that we're going with a September launch.
September 2026.
Yes. I will be running some workshops as of the 14th of May. We'll look at trauma-informed practice, we'll look at the 3 shades of experience. So I talk about for me, when I'm in my leadership journey, I've recognised that there's different types of experience, and each type of experience needs a different approach. So you've got lived experience, and I sit here in the room as somebody who's got lived experience. I believe that I'm at a point where I've processed my trauma and I've been able to integrate that into my life where it no longer causes me significant harm. I'll always live there. It'll never leave me. I'll always live with trauma. But I would say my experience is lived. The people that we work with here, I would say, have got living experience. The trauma is very much present. The situation, the circumstances, the challenges are all very much still unfolding around that person. And then I think we've got people who've got limited experience, where they might have worked with somebody who's got trauma, or they might have somebody like a partner or a wife or a husband who has experienced trauma in some shape or form. And I think when you're able to identify where somebody sits in that spectrum of experience, I think at that point you can adapt your responses and your approach to what they need at that moment in time. So I can see sometimes people will maybe sit in lived experience, but then something will happen. And actually, everything's very much back right at the forefront. And how you used to engage and work and manage that person is now very different, because you're dealing with a different set of challenges and circumstances. So I think that session will be particularly good, and hopefully it covers a lot of ground. So as of the 14th of May, I will have sessions that are up and running, and then hopefully the book will be September.
Yeah, and are the sessions like open for people outside the organisation to book into?
Yes,
open to the public?
Yeah.
Exciting.
Yeah, so that'll be, all of them will be advertised in the next few weeks.
Yeah.
But yeah, book's looking like September.
I am excited for that.
Oh, I'll be glad when it's over the line, I tell you. It's been
a copy.
It's been a wonderful experience. Who knew I could write a book? Because I never had any idea. What started as training and upskilling and a way of managing my well-being, I think, like my workplace well-being, has turned into a book. I started to write about my experiences of leadership. So all profits for the book will go to thriving survivors, because it's my last 10 years of my life have been here, and that is what's in the book, is that rich learning that's came for a decade of working with people with lived experience in whatever shape that takes, and the vast spectrum of trauma as well. So it's been a cathartic process. I've loved it. And who knew?
Who knew? My book's 10 this year.
Heather knew.
Heather knows a lot. She sees things in people before
she
we see them. She just meets you and she's like, I know exactly your path.
Yeah.
Like a mystic of business.
Yeah, you've got a book in you. I'm like, right, okay then. Before I knew it, I had a book in me. So yeah. Yes. All power to Heather. Yep.
All power to you for sitting down and actually writing it.
Yeah.
Because it's all like they say everybody's got a book in them, but not everybody's got the discipline to be able to sit down and actually get it out. It's
been challenging, to say the least. A full-time business, so it's more than full-time. Family of 3 kids, it's busy. It's super busy, and trying to fit it all in. However, it's the right thing at the right time, and sometimes you just know. So I'm just going with the flow, where it ends up.
Where is the best place for people to follow you or to get information on?
I would my personal LinkedIn, so Ashley Scotland on LinkedIn, and then my website should be up and live in the next few weeks, which is great as well. But at this moment in time, my LinkedIn page is the best place to get to follow. Yeah.
Fabulous. I will put the link to that into the show notes. So thank you so much, Ashley.
Wonderful. Thank you
for being my guest.
Enjoyed every minute.
So do remember to subscribe, like, share, and all that stuff for the algorithm stuff. Thank you.